Kenai. We're here today. We have a really, actually, pretty exciting and kind of fun little special episode that we're doing today. We have Kayla back. If you've listened to Kayla's story before, she's recorded a recovery story with us, and it's super awesome. We also have Billy back with us today, which is super exciting to have people we've had record come back and record again on something like this, which is just kind of a little not less important side project that we've kind of been thinking about and working on, is talking about some of these other qualities that kind of not only enrich recovery, but enrich life in general. And so the one we're talking about today is gratitude. Oh yeah, Koebryn's here.
Hey!
Yeah, Koebryn's here. Yeah. And me. So yeah, we're talking about gratitude today. And the reason this came up is because obviously all of us at Change for the Kenai are doing our gratitude challenge, right? And so I kind of took a step back, and I had to think, like, oh, dang, like, what am I grateful for? You know, and it was this weird moment where I was like, oh, man, like, I haven't really expressed any gratitude in, like, the last however long, you know, like, and I had to step back and, like, man, I'm thankful for, like, the people we get to talk to, like, that we get to record with. I'm grateful for the job that we have, the fact that we get to work. A lot of flexibility, a lot of freedom, right? I mean, obviously, like, I'm grateful for the financial situation that I'm in, you know what I mean? That, like, I have a house to sleep in, I have a car to drive. Like, I have a lot of things that a lot of people don't, you know? So, like, it kind of just spurred this big, like, wow, like, we have a lot of things to be grateful for. And I thought, what better people to talk to about gratitude than people who are in recovery who probably self-confessed have a lot to be thankful for. So we're going to jump right into that, I guess. So I guess we'll start off with this, whichever one of you guys wants to start.
Well, actually, before that, I just want to go really quick into kind of the science of gratitude. Not that there is necessarily a science, but it's one of those parts of life that is a skill. And it's weird because there's a lot of parts of life that you think are just kind of given, but again, it's a skill. So something that you actually have to practice. And it's crazy, though, because it will change your perspective over time. They found that just even like I think it was like a month, about a month, or maybe like 90 days or something. But
yeah, so like on the gratitude challenge that like we're doing at Change for the Kenai on Facebook, it's like 3 things you're grateful for, or gratitude for, that you're grateful for. 3 things you're grateful for every day for 28 days.
Okay,
yeah. So like it's a month, and so like that outlook, right? That positive outlook, and just like recognizing things, like the good things in life, right? Because like if you're grateful for things, they're usually probably good. You know, like you're not grateful you got stabbed in the leg yesterday. Like that's probably not a thing. So like they're all good things. So like they're all good things, right? So it's like recognizing the good things in your life is like supposed to. Well, it does like help you gain a more like positive perspective on life itself. So I think that's kind of the gist.
Yeah, more or less that it becomes a habit over time, and a lot of life is kind of what you focus on. I mean, really, and changing your focus from negativity to positivity doesn't change your circumstances, but it does change, like you said, your perspective. Right. So, definitely.
So yeah, we'll slide in. What does gratitude mean to you guys? Whoever wants to start. That's kind of a very broad, big question, but yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to be grateful for, and because before I got to recovery and before I moved here, everything was just all, I didn't want to live anymore. And just focus on the negative so many times, it was ingrained in me as a young kid, because I remember coming aware, you know, when you come aware as a kid and you first time see the world, like 4 or 3 years old, I remember looking at my feet, and I have scars I burned when I was a baby, and I thought everyone looked like that. And I seen my cousins like, oh, they have normal feet, why am I different? And right there and on, that self-pity came along right away. And throughout my high school, basketball, sports, basically, and like I was becoming a star freshman year right away and dislocating my shoulder, and that pushed my ego very down. And I was like, oh, poor me, I'm not going to be good as I was. And I remember just playing basketball in the middle of the court, just where we're up by 20, not even grateful at that moment, and just like, why am I different? Why am I different? Still feeling that, trying to join everything in school, speech, Lego League, everything, trying to feel like I want to fit in. But through all high school, there was drugs and marijuana and stuff and pills, and I was all doing until I got to college, and that's where I met the people who drank. And I remember my first time drinking, actually drinking, my first beverage was 4 years old, but actually drinking hard liquor. I remember looking in the mirror and just smiling to myself, like, I'm never going to stop this. I feel so grateful. It's like, holy, I found something, a solution to my self-pittiness. And God started getting worse and worse and progressing, and that feeling we felt first time drinking disappeared. Like trying to find that same feeling where I felt normal again from when I first drank. I kept on chasing it, and that's how my disease started progressing. Until I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, these meetings and in recovery basically, and learning about recovery. First go around 2017 I wasn't really serious about recovery because I was still focusing on the negative and not trying to better myself. Until October 28th, coming back and learning about life and how to be grateful. And when someone passed away in my life, or friends, family, right away, that would have been my ticket out to go drink, self-pity, and poor me. And now through recovery, I just, when someone passes away, I'm able to thank my higher power, who I choose to call God, is like, thank you for putting this person into my life. Instead of thinking of the bad memories, I thought about the good memories. And right now, there's one family member that's passing away due to this disease. And I was about probably 9 months when I seen her at the hospital with tubes around. And for a whole week before that, she was calling me to reach out, and I was talking about my experience and hopefully she heard something. And when I heard she went to the hospital, I had to go over there and to say my goodbyes just in case she passed away. And I was over there and I seen her, and that scared the hell out of me. If I wasn't sober right now, this would have been me. And then I was like, thank you, God, for being sober today and alive. Like,
that's an interesting parallel, man. And you're like, because like I feel like, I mean, maybe it's like just from a personal standpoint, and like maybe there's probably someone that can relate. You know, like when a lot of people think back, or like when I think back, you know, like some of like my most proud, like most grateful moments are like in high school doing sports. You know what I mean? Like those are some of the moments that even when I look back, I'm like, there's certain moments where like, dude, that was cool. You know what I mean? Like even then, like in the moment, and I'm like. And luckily, I had some coaches and some mentors, you know, like I didn't do it myself, obviously, and some people that were like, dude, like, that's pretty cool, and like, you're never going to have that back again, so like, you might as well just sit here and enjoy this. And I'm like, okay, so that's what I'll do. You know what I mean? And so, like, it's an interesting parallel, you know, like, how yours is like kind of the opposite, you know what I mean? Like, even like, when you're young, and like, there's like, some of those like, pretty, you know, like, you're up by 20 in a basketball game, like, that's a moment you're never going to get back, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's like a part of a symptom of addiction too. You know what I mean? It's like seeing, even being able like to recognize like the physical objectives. Like I'm playing basketball, I'm 15, I'm up by 20. You know, and part of it's probably being a teenager too. But you're like, so what? You know what I mean? You're like, who cares? You know. And I think because like in addiction, obviously too, like your brain is now prioritized like drinking and drugs over like anything else that you can be grateful for. Like you said, like when you were drinking in college, like that's what I was grateful for. I think that's like an important piece for like people outside of addiction and therefore outside of recovery, like to kind of understand about like showing some grace and compassion to people who are in addiction. You know what I mean? Like when you help somebody, like when you see someone on like, this is like a pretty like stereotypical experience, you know what I mean? When you see somebody like on the side of the road and they're like, oh, I gave this person money, you know, and they went like straight to the liquor store. You know, like kind of like this weird like negative connotation, you know what I mean? Or like when you see it, I mean, even from this just conversation, from like that other person's perspective, you know what I mean? Like that's like the moment in their life where they express gratitude. Like, and it's kind of like this weird, like almost seemingly like, I guess paradoxically backwards, like kind of thought, but like, it's just an interesting, like to get like people to kind of fully understand, and myself at times included, obviously, like the strength that is like this disease, you know what I mean, when it is at full hold, and like how it absolutely does reprioritize your brain, and the fact that like those are the things you're thankful and grateful for.
Puts you into survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
It's proven that addiction and alcoholism changes your brain to where when you're in that state, you know, since it's a disease, puts you in that dis-ease, and you're in that survival mode where it puts alcohol and drugs above, you know, sleep, like sex, you know,
Yeah.
food, like cleanliness, like anything that was like priorities before that, like now all that is a priority is alcohol and drugs.
Right.
And just kind of to go off what you were saying, it's interesting that it's almost societally acceptable that naivety is kind of associated with happiness. It's like, oh, when you're a kid, then you're gonna have fun, and then when you grow up, you're never gonna have fun again. You're like, that's a little fun.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, right? It kind of makes sense in that way.
Definitely.
But then people with really difficult backgrounds are kind of forced to grow up fast.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
it's sad, but they lose that naivety real quick. And I think the way that we see it is having more understanding relating to less things to be thankful for, whereas in reality it's still there, you know, just because you know that there are things in the world that are painful or that there are, you know, struggles, doesn't mean that you can't have gratitude that there isn't something to look forward to in life, you know, whereas it definitely I've seen it where it's, you know, you said you're never going to get that moment back, but there's so many other moments that are great in life that you'll never be able to experience as a child. But, you know, I don't think those are as prevalent as, oh, you're going to have to pay taxes. You're going to hate taxes.
You're gonna have to work forever.
I just want to throw it out there to you guys. We get to pay taxes, okay?
Sure.
We do.
Yes.
Yeah, that's like another interesting thing that like I always see a lot, because like obviously being from Montana and then like living in Alaska, you know, like everyone hears taxes and you're like, ugh. Myself at times included, you know, because like objectively, dude, like there is money like occasionally leaving my paycheck, which is like frustrating, you know what I mean? But like at the same time, like after like really prioritizing my mind, I'm like, yeah, but public education's pretty cool. I got one of those. You know what I mean?
Turn it
Like,
around. I like roads. That's something to be thankful for, you know?
roads are cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're all right.
Oh, definitely.
They don't fix them near as fast as I want to. Maybe if I gave them an extra couple $100, they might. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, but like it is like finding like it's like this concept of gratitude, you know, where we can like seek and find like even those things are like seemingly aren't things to be grateful for, like paying my taxes. Like are things to be grateful for, you know what I mean, like in a way, shape, or form.
Yeah, you can really find it. I mean,
Right.
and that's part of it, is that you have to seek it out. That's part of the building the habit, is there is something good about situations, but it's so easy to focus on what's wrong. I mean, anyone can be grateful when things are going awesome. It's like, yeah, you know, but but finding that gratitude and even the hope that it brings, you know, when you realize, once you start putting the pieces together and understand that there is some good with the bad, that, you know, there's going to be even more good later on and more bad, and that's part of it. But you can find the good parts and you can cling to them in those times of difficulty and kind of be inspired and have hope from them.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you guys have like some tips and strategies? Like, how do you guys? I guess it's a good one for Kayla, because we're friends on Facebook, and so I always see some really inspiration. Yeah, what's up? I always find some like really inspirational things on there as I'm scrolling around. But like when things do get pretty tough, you know what I mean, or like frustrating, or like you get kind of emotional at times, like you're just kind of overwhelmed. Like, what are some of those ways that you do like kind of look for the gratitude?
Yeah, so 2 days ago, that's funny that you mentioned that, because 2 days ago, I put a Facebook post because for about 2 or 3 days, I was in that self-pity that Billy was talking about. Like, I'm like, life is just hard sometimes. It's like, I had to think about it. Like, I was literally homeless, begging people for money. I remember when I used to panhandle, and people would just look at me like, oh my gosh, this poor soul. Like, she doesn't have much longer left. Like, like they would look at me just like I was like a lost cause. you know? And now I had to really look at like my situation now. Like I'm coming up on a year, which is insane. And I have a great home. I'm in a program. I get to sponsor other women, which is such a gift in itself. And I actually have my sponsees do a gratitude list every day of 10 things they're grateful for. One of my sponsees is like, it's helping me. Like, she's kind of like, but does it have to be 10 things every day? I'm like,
She's like,
yeah.
I am thankful for my left eye. I am thankful for my right eye. Like, okay.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm only happier to do it for like this last week because I was like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe you're starting to run out of things to be grateful for, but it's really cool. And I have a warm home. You know, I have a nice vehicle. I'm financially stable, and I have God in all of this. You know, and my family back, and true friend. Like, if I was to name off all the things I'm grateful for, it would probably be like.
Right.
Because I had to look at where I was, and also a reason I was getting into that self-pity is because I have mental health disorders too, and I was having medication problems, and my insurance was not wanting to cover one of my mental health meds, and I was like, that's when the self-pity came on. I'm like, don't they know who I think I am? Like, come on. And then I kind of went ballistic. I even called my insurance company. I was like, you're gonna kill people like this. And then literally a minute later I went, sir, I'm so sorry. I have to make amends for that. And he goes, okay. And I was like, no, this is not your fault. Like, please accept my amends. And he's like, I accept it. Like, you're cool.
Like, why do you keep using the word amends so much?
Yeah, he really wasn't getting why I was so like, accept it, please. I'm sorry. And then I felt super bad because it's not their fault. You know, they're just... It's just how it works with, you know, insurance companies and medications and stuff. And yeah, I just had to get out of that self-pity. And I'm going to be honest, it took, like 2 days of me just being like, oh, because of the problems with my meds. But then there's so many things I can find to be grateful for over things to be, you know, disgrateful for or ungrateful.
I like disgrateful.
I like disgrateful. I like
You
that.
can add in your made-up language.
You can.
Disgraceful.
That's what I'm saying. Language is fluid. You use it how you want to.
You can just, yeah.
If you want to say disgraceful, you go right on ahead and say disgraceful.
I feel so encouraged.
It'll be
I
in the
love
dictionary.
it.
It'll be in the dictionary in 5 years, anyways.
You brought up a good point, Kayla. I didn't think about that. That even being grateful that you're not in the places that you were. Like, I can imagine scenarios where I'm like, oh man, I'm so glad I'm past that. You know, just situations that were just sucked, you know, and even using those as strength of thinking, hey, I made it through that, you know, even that's something to be grateful for. I overcame, you know, or it worked out in a way. And so there's still things that are in my life that I can look at that are way better than it was before.
Right.
And so that's definitely a good perspective.
And I think that's something about life too, you know what I mean? Because like you said, like, life is hard sometimes, dude. And I think like there's like this weird like thing where we're like not supposed to like talk about like how life is hard, you know what I mean? Like, hard for everybody, get up, come on, keep going, you know what I mean? Like, do this, do that. And we're like, hey, can I have like an hour? Like, just to be like, this kind of sucks, you know what I mean? Which I think is like, we find things to be grateful for, right? But then like recognizing the fact that like, it is kind of tough sometimes. You know what I mean? That's like what's like makes gratitude like this thing that's like so powerful. You know what I mean? Is that like it offsets like our recognition of like, yeah, this kind of sucked. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, this was hard. But like, oh, but I have these things too. You know what I mean? That like kind of make life what it is. Like, I'm grateful for this, not so grateful for that, and like, but overall, like I'm somewhere in the middle and I'm okay. You know what I mean? Because like, it's not always like. Life isn't always like, as Zach would say, sunshine and rainbows. You know what I mean? Like,
I think gratitude also is an action word in itself. You know, like for me and Billy in recovery, you know, we gotta learn. We've been taught also in the program we're in to be grateful in the times that are also bad. You know, they say that's mostly when your gratitude shows when things aren't going smoothly. When you can go, okay, thank you God because I haven't used today. I haven't
Right.
drank today. And if that's all you've done for that day, then you're doing pretty good. You know.
And that's a good point. I mean, even my minor struggle with marijuana comparatively to all the things that are going on, it's sometimes I would think, you know, I didn't smoke today, but then I didn't do this and I didn't do that. But, you know, that's all you really need is maybe that is it. And maybe that's the start. You know, maybe it's a day without and you didn't do everything that you wanted to and you didn't conquer the world, but you tackled a little area in your life or maybe a big one and you got a little bit out of it. And that's something to be grateful for, you know.
Exactly.
So definitely.
And I think that shouts to like people, especially like with mental health disorders. You know what I mean? Like, especially with like depression. You know what I mean? Like, if you get out of bed, you know, like even if like you don't quite make it to work that day, you know, like because people with like chronic severe depression, you know, like maybe you didn't quite make it to work that day, but maybe like you got out of bed, like went on a walk. You know, maybe you talked to somebody today. You know what I mean? Maybe you reached out to somebody today and like wanted to talk about something. You know what I mean? Like even like just these like things that seem so small that like are definitely things like to be grateful for. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
that can kind of permeate life where it's like relative, but like gratitude is one of those things where like no matter how big or how small, it has a very similar effect like on just like your circumstance and or not on your circumstance I guess, but on your perspective to that circumstance. Like
Yes.
Yeah. I think we should celebrate those little victories even. I mean, it's pretty common for, especially I can imagine in recovery where it's like, oh, so now you could have the mindset, oh, now I'm just functioning, you know, oh, now I'm just regular. But in reality, that's a victory. I mean, even getting there, even every little step, I think you should be willing to pat yourself on the back to encourage yourself and not be like, well, now I'm only 50% away from being where I want to, you know. No, you got 1% today, and that's 1% closer. Like, that's something.
Exactly.
and I think that's like a common addiction trap too, where you're like you get like 6 months, a year, and you're like, dude, I have to do this for the rest of my life. Like, yeah, it's daunting at times. You know what I mean?
It
Like
is.
the whole life, you like the rest of this existence, like is taken away. But at the same time, like it's an opportunity because like when you're not, life seems to be a lot better. You know what I mean? Like you have an opportunity to live a lot just like more enriching, fulfilled life as well. It's like it's just like that negative thought versus positive thought. You know what I mean? Like yeah, I can't use anymore, but also like when I use, like bad things usually happen, and when I don't, good things usually happen. So like I kind of like this, like I like the opportunity of like not having bad things always happen to me. You know what I mean? So like yeah, it's definitely a double-sided coin.
Or being able to fully live in your life. I mean, for the good and the bad. I mean, I can't think of a way to find gratitude if you're just running. You know, if you're just running away from life and you're just escaping from your experiences, that's not the focus. The focus is on anything but the things that suck, more or less. It's not really towards the positive. It's just away from the negative. So it opens opportunity even to really embrace gratefulness, I feel.
Definitely. Like this guy who, I used to go into one of the Tesoros, the Marydale Tesoro, every day when I was using, I used to go in there because either I was homeless just kind of walking around or I was in my van that I was literally living down by the river in. Not even a joke. Or I would just stop by there, grab a soda because they would be kind enough to let me have like a free soda, and then I would just leave there. And I went in there the other day, and you know, I look a lot healthier. And one of my friends who works there, he's like, yeah, Kayla, I don't blame you for how much you drank and used. I would have drank and used if I were you too. And I was like, that's not accurate though. I was like, there is people who have it so much worse than I ever did. You know, because I didn't want to use that, oh yeah, I had it so bad, you know, like that self-pity again that comes in. Because in all honesty, yes, I did dig myself into that hole, but I had to get myself out of it when I chose to stop digging. You know what I mean? So I didn't want to boost my self-pity with that, be like, oh my gosh, I know, right? Somebody understands. It's like, it's like, oh, no.
Right. And I think that's a cool message too, dude. It's like, I mean, like having it tough is relative too, you know what I mean, to your circumstance, but like there are like most of the time, no matter how tough you have it, like you're just as capable to do good as you are bad. Like for yourself, like, I mean, there are some things that are going to happen, like especially if they're even like a little younger that's listening to this. You know what I mean? Like there's some things that are going to happen. They're going to suck, dude. Like it's just not going to be a good time. And like, kind of got to acknowledge it, find some things to be grateful for, and just kind of keep going. You know what I mean? Like even just like it's like the program, like one step at a time, and like you just that's all you do, just one step at a time. I think being grateful is kind of like that too, like just kind of learning over time, like how to be grateful for things, and like then recognizing gratitude in the moment, kind of just moving through that way. I'm grateful right now. Do you know that?
Same here.
Yeah.
One of the crazy things is that that we learned at the Sources of Strength was that it doesn't even have to be genuine. Like you don't have to necessarily feel grateful, especially if you're just starting out being thankful. You're not going to feel like super grateful. You're like, yeah, I'm healthy. Okay. You know, yeah, I woke up. All right. You know, it just seems you've been taking it for granted so long that maybe you don't feel like, yeah, you know what? I am blessed. But you are.
Right.
But that still builds in the habit, and eventually the feeling will come of gratefulness if you stick with it. Because it is a habit, and it doesn't automatically have the feedback loop of, you know what, it is. I mean, maybe it does, and in that case, that's awesome, you know.
Right.
But sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's a big part about gratitude too. That like to really like practice gratitude is obviously like you have to practice it, you know, or like not obviously, but you practice it. And so it's like if you wake up and you're like, I'm grateful for this, and you don't get like this like. Or like, I'm grateful to be here today. You don't get this like ginormous burst of energy. We're like ready to take down the world. Like, that's okay. You know what I mean? Like,
You're like, yeah.
Right. It's like, yeah, dude.
I have a warm house.
Oh, yeah. If you can get to that point, you call me and let's hang out. Because that sounds like a great time. You know what I mean?
That sounds like better than speed right now. Like, that's some natural speed. That's hilarious. I think what you said too, Aaron, like, you know, with seeing that seemingly bad and turning it into something positive is kind of like what Billy was saying too, you know, about his childhood with, you know, looking at himself and being like, oh, I feel so different, because I felt the exact same way. I feel like I was so different from every single kid because they'd always call me weird. Now I'm like, I embrace it. What?
You're just jealous.
Yeah.
Like looking back at it now, it's like when I drank, everything was second or third. Like drinking had to come first.
Yeah.
And when I was in recovery, I thought about that, and it's like I put drinking in front of hunting, drinking in front of family, and I lost so many family time, and precious time, memories. But that when I was in recovery, I started feeling self-pity about that. It's like, oh, I'm losing so much family time, and I didn't even go home for a year and a half now, so because I was focused on recovery.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful that family were supporting me and say like, oh, it's okay, man. You can come next year. You can come next summer or something, whenever. And this moment I had this week was beautiful actually, because I got to see my brother and his little family come and visit, even if it's just for a day.
Aww.
And get to see my nephew for the first time. And that moment right there is like, had to be humble and say like, thank you, God. You know, yeah, it's like, thank you for this moment right here. Even if I didn't see family for a year and a half, it's like, yeah. And in these rooms and outside in recovery, making these families and extended families of having basically a AA mom and all that stuff and growing these friendships is like, that's why they always say, become of service in these rooms, sponsor people and get a service position, and that made me feel so grateful. And like we have these service positions where we set up tables and chairs, even if we're setting up tables just for 5 minutes, it's in that moment we're not thinking about ourselves. And it's crazy coming back from where I was and not looking down on people too. And it's like, hey man, they'll be great. the promises are real. And it's like, if you continue this road of recovery, it's going to get better. And just encouraging them. And sometimes they need to be called out. I got called out a lot of times because of my self-pity, and my sponsor would be like, oh, like, poor me. He's like, you have a roof over your head, you have food in your belly, you have food in the fridge. And he'd be like, what the hell are you complaining about? And the thing is like, yeah, that's true.
He used to tell me that too.
I was like, I'm just grateful that you guys are here too. And this is very good because we're moving in a modern age where everything's all online, and this is very, very helpful for the people that need to hear this. And it's cool.
Would you say it's kind of humbling?
Yeah.
Kind of, because I remember even, your mom tells you, oh, they're starving kids. Eat, finish your food,
In Africa.
Yeah. Exactly. And as a kid, you're like, whatever, But then as you get older and you start to humble yourself and you start to realize that you do kind of have things pretty good, what is it like letting go of kind of that self-centered look? Because I know that's kind of it's a pretty key point of addiction, is as the substance kind of consumes your life, your focus is drawn inward on that and internally, because that's all you can focus on. That's what you want. So what was it like kind of expanding or prying your eyes from inward, looking at yourself, to kind of outward? What was that like?
Oh, it was pretty hard.
Yeah.
Really hard.
Really hard.
There's like all these, for example, if you got like a year, and it'd be like, oh my God, thank you, I got a year. And it's like, it's all just one day at a time.
Yeah.
Just got to focus on that. Person who woke up early in the morning has the most recovery than anyone in this room. And folks, that's what I'm learning still to this day, and being grateful. And sometimes that's getting easier to letting go of that pride and ego and all that stuff what you were talking about, like. And it's easier to be like, oh man, that wasn't my work. That was my higher power's work. There was people around these rooms, people in recovery who I listened to. And when I'm having, like when we were talking about the bad times, I listened in the meetings and listened if they went through it before, and I get their number. And I asked them, like, how do you get through this and all that stuff, and be grateful that this person's in recovery who knows how to go through the situations I'm going through right now. And it's like from family passing on. And I have a person in recovery who I go to that. If I'm angry, I go to that person. If I'm sad, I go to that person. There's a lot of people I can go to. And and there's these, every morning I wake up and just be like, sometimes I don't wake up happy, sometimes scared. Because when I get these using drinking dreams, it scares the out of me, because like I have to wake up like, did I drink?
Yeah.
Did I drink? And I think about it, and I know it was just a dream, and then at a moment I'd be like, instead of like, oh my God, let it affect me throughout the day, I'd be like, thank you God for reminding me, if I ever drink again, that's how I would feel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Wow, what a positive outlook on a nightmare, more or less. Yeah. Wow. And that kind of goes into the link between kind of service and gratitude, which I find really interesting, that actually giving back makes you appreciate what you have. I don't know, what is your experience like with that? I know you talked about kind of service and especially sponsoring now. Is that really playing into the gratitude in your life?
It really is, because I have a few sponsees right now, and also my career is I work in home health care. So I work with my client right now. She's elderly and she has dementia too. And I actually have had to learn about dementia doing this. I've read a few books, and they actually say that dementia is really similar. This sounds crazy, but it's really similar to addiction and alcoholism in the sense of selfishness. They really only see, my client really only sees herself. She can't really tell if I'm having a bad day. I think she's asked me, how are you? Maybe like twice. And I've been working for her for quite some time now. But that's okay, because I also had that like appreciation for her And just being of service to her in my career made me even, like you said, it's like that effect, more grateful for what I had too. And I'm super grateful for her. She is just a hoot and she's so fun to be around. And also my sponsees, I've been able to like, mirror to them what being grateful really is about. Like the other day we were driving and one of my friends she's homeless right now. And honestly, I got to go and see her and give her a hug the other day. And I think that might be the last time that I ever hug her. I mean, that's just the reality of it. Because she's a heroin addict and she has had endocarditis twice within this year. And that's an infection in the heart. And you have like a 30% chance of surviving it the first time you get it, and the second time you get it, it's a 3% chance. And I looked her dead in her eyes and I said, that's God right there. I said, I really hope I see you sometime, in a meeting or something like that. And I'm gonna be honest, I gave her $20 because she told me she was starving. But I also told her, I said, it doesn't show my character for helping you when I'm able to. It'll show your character if you go and spend that on something you're not supposed to. And she looked at me like, what? Like, but it's true. If you're able to help somebody, because like right now I am, somewhat financially stable. And I'm able to go and help somebody. And one of my sponsees the other day was kind of like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. You're such an angel. And I was like, not really. I just, because I didn't want my ego being built up like that. Like, I was just like, no, I'm able to help, so I'm going to help. That was pretty much all, because it is that service of being able to, if you're able to help somebody, now that we're able to mentally and physically and emotionally and all those different components, then I will,
And that kind of plays into even the mindset of kind of like scarcity versus abundance. So if you think the world is very scarce and there's limited resources, you're just going to have to take what you can get, and everyone else is going to take what they can get, and you just have to hold on to it and hope nobody takes it away. Versus the mindset of abundance, that there is enough, that there is more than enough, and we can give to other people, and that's not going to basically ruin your life, because there is so much. And I think the more gratitude you have, the easier it is to give, because once you start realizing how much you have and all the things that are going on for you, you realize that you can give back to people because you have this place of abundance within you that you can give. So I think that really plays into even the mindset of helping other people, of gratitude.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of it stems from loneliness, for sure. It did for me, at least.
Right.
It felt like a warm blanket or hug that I had never had before.
Right. And I think a lot of that too, dude, is like, because loneliness is like, at least I guess from a personal like perspective, dude, it was always a perception for me. Because like, maybe except for like in my like youth when I was like a really little kid, and maybe that's like where it like perpetuates from. Like outside of that, dude, like into middle school and high school, and like even into like living in Billings, and like you're out of high school, like those first few years, like I always felt really alone, but like objectively, I always had a lot of people around. You know what I mean? So like I wasn't ever necessarily like alone, right? But like it's those things, like it's almost like an overplayed like tape of like rolls of inspirational like posts on Facebook, where it's like it's for the people that feel alone in a room full of people. You know what I mean? And it's like this thing's like almost like a romanticized, like dramatized, like overplayed kind of thing. And it's not that like, because I like personally like I never felt alone like when I was in the room full of people, but like I'd spend 22 hours with a room of people. And like those other two was like, oh, I'm the loneliest human on earth. Like that self-pity, you know what I mean? Where like, I've been doing like these really like fun things for like 3 days, right? Like fun things for 3 days. And then like, I'm alone for like, to go to sleep. And I'm like, I'm the loneliest human ever. This is depressing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, and so, yeah, I think it's like really interesting, it's like, even then, like finding things to be grateful for. And like, that's something that like, I just had to practice over like the last few years, like, And you're like, oh, dude, I'm like the loneliest human. They're like, well, no, you just spent like 20 hours with like some of your best friends. You just did this, you just did that. Like, you had a lot of fun. Like, you should just like appreciate that. So that's not the way I put it to myself. Otherwise, I won't really appreciate it. Like, but I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then I can sleep easy. You know, but like before, dude, when I like, especially when I'm in it, you know, you're like, I think that's half the reason that like I started like selling stuff was so that I didn't ever have to be alone, like at all, dude. Because like you could stay up. Like there's people that need dope any time of the day.
24/7.
That's 24/7 business. You know what I mean? So like, you were never like, so there was like not knocks on your door, but like a ring on your phone. You know what I mean? Like it was just really weird, like sensory feeling. Same thing, I guess. Maybe that's why it's like so triggering. But yeah, dude, it's really interesting. Like loneliness is an interesting concept where it's like sometimes it is like a very objective thing, and sometimes it's like a perception. Like you're not really like alone in this world. You know what I mean? Like, but if you feel that way. Like the feel versus the see, like it's just really interesting concept.
I think it has to do with not feeling like you don't fit in or you don't
Right.
belong. I think that's where a lot of the loneliness from being in a crowd kind of stems. Is because I mean I've been there where it's just like hanging out. Like I think I went to like a really mild rave one time, and it just like kind of hit me. I know it's like because you think rave is like crazy party. It wasn't. It was like in Anchorage, so it was like kind of like.
Right.
But I mean, at the time, I was just like, what am I doing? Like,
Right.
this is stupid. You know, I don't feel like I fit in here. It just, you know, because that loneliness can kind of, I think it can invade into your mind and make you feel like you aren't worth much.
Right.
You know, just because you are different in your head, even if there are a bunch of people who care about you.
Right.
But if you don't look at that, if you don't focus on that there are people in your life who do care about you, or, you know, that you can reach out. Like you guys were saying, even that, Billy especially, that there's no shame in getting resources from other people on how to figure out how to deal with what's going on in your life. And I think that's a part of gratitude as well as perspective. And what better perspective than someone else's of your life? Because you're biased. Everyone is.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks.
Oh, definitely.
Right. But I don't know, have you guys had some kind of experience with reaching out to people? And I know you kind of mentioned that, but even more in depth of having them turn your perspective around, or even letting go of maybe the pride of like, oh, I can do this on my own. Oh, I'm just going to power through it. It's going to be fine. But instead, talking to someone, what was that like?
When someone passed away in my family, I talk about that. And
Yeah.
I had this guy, he has like 25, 26 years of sobriety, and I asked him, because he dealt with a lot of death too. And I was going on self-pity, going to him and just basically venting about it. And then he told me his solution. Told me one of his experiences with his grandpa was, if I can remember the story right, it's like he was sad that his grandpa was going to pass away, but his grandpa told him, like, don't be sad, because if you're sad, I'm going to be sad when I leave. And if I'm in the other, if he's in the other, basically heaven or somewhere, he said, if you're sad in this world and people are looking like the people are looking down in heaven on you, they're probably sad up there if you're sad. So if you're happy, they're happy. So I thought about that. Like, you're probably right. So it's okay to cry for them and be lonely and not lonely, but like cry for them. Basically, that's normal. That's in human life. We can cry and learning how to let go. And that was one of my experiences. Like I took that and I'm grateful. It's like, hell yeah. So why be sad if they're in a better place?
That's huge, too. Like, I like that you said, Billy, letting go, too, and just being able to talk to other people about what's going on inside of you and whatnot. Because in my experience in the program, I've had to make a lot of amends. You know, my amends list was pretty
About as long as your gratitude list?
Yes. It was pretty lengthy. And there was one person on there where I was like, I don't know if this amends is going to go good. And it is also, you're not supposed to make it if you think it's going to harm yourself or somebody else.
Right.
So I had to really, really think about it and be like, is this going to hurt me or is this going to hurt this other person? And I had to confide in my sponsor and also other women in the program. And this was with making amends to my ex, who I was with for 3 years, who I talked about in my story quite a bit. And we used to really beat on each other, and we got into hard drugs together and drank a bunch. And, you know, we just were really toxic for each other. So when I talked with my sponsor and these other women, I was like, is it even a good idea for me to make amends? And that was in kind of more in the middle of my recovery when I had probably like 5-6 months. And she said, let's wait it out a little longer. Let's see how you're doing like more towards your year. And recently I just got to make amends to him, and we are now cordial and friends again.
Wow.
Like, that's one of those things that I'm so grateful for. I even told him the other day, I said, thank you for just being my friend now and not seeing me as this monster.
Right.
And I don't see you as that monster either. And he was like, it's totally cool. He's like, it's in the past. And I was like, like, that's huge. Like, anybody, you can get forgiveness or forgive. Really, anybody. But it really depends on your mindset and how forgiving you want to be and how grateful you want to be for those past experiences that you had. That's when I had to use my gratitude that I've been learning and be like, okay, what are the experiences that I'm grateful for with this person? Do I want to keep this person in my life? And I chose to be like, yes, because they were important to me at one point. And just be like, let bygones be bygones. And that was huge for me. Like, I really, honestly, in my head, I can't think of anybody where there's a true feud or a resentment anymore. Because it's just so futile and, like, toxic. It's toxic to hold that hate in your heart. I'd rather love people than have any hate in my heart, honestly. Because it is. They say that resentment is one of the things that will kill us. Because it takes a lot of people out. I've seen it take a lot of people out. You know, and I feel like, I hope that's on topic, but I feel like that does have to do with, like...
No, I feel that, dude. It's interesting, too, because, like, making amends with people and, like, and that self-pity, too, in ways, you know what I mean? That, like, they kind of can, like, play off each other where you're like, oh, this person hates me. I hate me. Poor me. You know what I mean? It's like this weird thing. It's like this weird thing. And then you're like, so I should probably drink about it. You know, like, and it's all this, like, self-perpetuated, like, just toxic mess, really, you know?
I'm going to drink at them.
Yeah.
It's like, what is that going to do? That's just going to hurt you? It's like, no, I'm go, 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 go.
Right.
It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel attacked.
But to go off what Billy was saying about even like you know, your grandpa, like my grandparents are getting older too, and I had a moment where I was like, you know, it's really sad that someday they're not going to be with me. But then I thought, you know what? I still have this time with them. Like, they're still around.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I can go over and be with them. I don't have to feel guilty because I'm not over there all the time and they're not going to be around forever. But because I still have an opportunity to spend time with them, and I can be grateful for that instead of missing them before they're gone, kind of thing. And I think that's a perspective that even extends into people's lives. When something good happens, they're like, well, what bad thing's going to happen next?
Right.
What's next? You know, this can't last forever. And it's like the most negative way you could view a positive thing is, well, this just means that something terrible is going to happen soon because things are going great. It's like, no, that's because how can you enjoy that? How can you be thankful for something that you feel is just leading to the next bad thing in your life?
The next doom.
Exactly. I just think
Yeah.
it sucks the color out of the beauty of the good things that are happening in your life. If it's almost like a pessimistic kind of outlook.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And and that's like kind of what we were talking about earlier too. You know what I mean? It's like even when the bad things do happen, like once you get good at gratitude, or like, and you start to just practice it more, like life doesn't happen in like in extremities a lot of the time. Like experiences don't happen in extremities a lot of the time. You know what I mean? Like there's always a little bit of good and a little bit of bad that happens at once in most experiences. You know what I mean? Like if you really were to sit down and like dissect a lot of your experiences, like you could probably find some times in that where you're like, okay, that was kind of cool. That wasn't as
Yeah.
cool. This was kind of cool. That wasn't. You know what I mean? So like it's kind of been like, okay, yeah, this was cool. And like kind of just like taking like your whole mindset to a more like positive site, you know, where it's like even when things are getting kind of tough, like you can still like see, you can flip the picture over and like see the colorful side, you know what I mean, versus like just kind of getting bogged down. But yeah.
Even
I
going
think
from
it's cool.
sorry.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Even going from negative to objective is a step. Even
Right.
just seeing reality for what it is, because it's kind of easy to paint that darker picture in your mind of what's happening and not
Yeah.
seeing, especially the future. And I know that's pretty common. Is it's like, oh, this could happen. It could ruin everything. It's like, yeah, but also something amazing could happen. That's, you know, what is likely? What is
Right.
really? What is reality here? And I think that's where talking to other people can help too, of getting a more objective perspective on your life instead of kind of seeing things negatively.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming by and talking to us today and talking about gratitude. I'm super grateful to have had this conversation with you guys, and this experience is super fun.
Of course.
This was you and I for the Kenai.